available, but we are here to talk about real estate, any real estate related. If you want to, come to the panelist room and ask your question, or just put it in the chat. Either way, we'll get to you. Super excited to see you here, guys. And we do have some questions that were sent out to us. So let me, Chris, if you're in the room, if you want to raise your hand, I can find you faster. And yeah, you guys put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A while I'm cleaning up. So we do have exciting stuff to share. And I just hear Chris actually having a conversation about lending, and that's something that can make or break your deal pretty much. So we're probably going to answer some of those questions as well. What are we seeing on the lending? We are actually um, buying a property, and that's exactly what's going on. So we usually try to share the things that we learn as we moving along, and doing the business that we are here to do, and also share some of those questions that come in different forms. So some of you send via text, in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat. If you're not in the WhatsApp chat, let me know. I can send you the invite. Actually, I'll put it in the chat here in a second. But so let's get started with lending, the type of lending. Let me see. Make sure that Chris. Here's Chris. I found you. I'm gonna promote you to panelist. I was just telling them I overhear the conversation you were having about lending, and I think that's very pertinent um, uh, topic. And it was, as we know, the lending can make or break your deal. So different type of lendings. Here you are. Different
Yes.
type of lendings, and you can probably just continue talking because I know that's exactly what you were talking about. The question was why variable versus fixed rate, agency versus, you know, um, we've seen hybrid lately. That's another product that has come up. I mean, not new, but it has been more used lately. So I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna let you take it from here. I'm gonna add some links to the chat, so I'll be distracted. So thank you for joining us.
Do you want to pull up or at least have ready the chart that you have for different lending options?
Can do that.
Um, and that way people will be able to see it, and then we can drop
Hmm.
the link in for them to be able to download that if they want to.
Oh, perfect.
Um,
Thank you.
okay, so we have a couple of things to talk about. It's funny because I tell her all the time, I'm like, oh, I got this great idea for something. And she's like, what is that? I'm like, I'm not telling you because you'll take it and use it. And
But I use it for you guys.
Yeah,
See?
exactly. She uses it so that I can't present it, but here she is. She's like, I heard you talking about it. It sounded so good. I'm just going to let you go ahead. No, but it's a question that's coming around right now is there's a lot of deals that are saying, hey, it's got assumable lending, assumable loans. And there's different factors to take into account when you see, because some of them are like still 3.5 to 4.5% interest, which is better than what you can do today, right? You're getting close. We're getting really close to catching the top end of that. But the the overall comes when you're looking at assuming a loan, you need to know some basics about the loan. And the basics of it are you need to know the interest rate. You need to know how much time is left on interest only period. What's the amortization schedule? So over how many years is it amortized? And what's the loan term? Along with that is when does it mature? Right. So why do we ask those? So the interest rate, self-explanatory, right? We want to know where's the interest today versus what I'm getting into. The amortization comes into play when there is a principal payment that's going to be due sometime during the loan. If it is an interest-only loan, like for the whole period, then there won't be an amortization rate attached to that. Okay, just so you're aware. Amortization means they take the loan balance divided over the number of years for the amortization years, and then you make your payments. If the amortization is greater than the loan term, then there's going to be a balloon payment on the back end to pay the rest of the principal. Okay. That's the quick version of how to explain it. It's not quite exact because, as many of you know, if you get a loan for your home and you pay your mortgage payment and it has a principal and interest payment to it, you're paying more interest. The loan payment doesn't really change a whole lot. It's more about your escrows that it changes. But the loan payment itself is principal and interest. And that payment stays the same if you got fixed rate debt. It stays the same all the way through. The difference is you're paying down just a little bit of the loan balance every time you make your payments, to where each month you're paying a little less interest and a little more principal, a little less interest, a little more principal. And it takes you beyond halfway point of being in the loan before it starts to go the other way and you're paying more principal than you are interest. I say that so that you have that understanding of what's the difference in how this all works, where if we're trying to assume that we have a low interest rate, is there interest only period left where I get the benefit of that low interest rate? Because if there's no interest period only period left, that means I have to also pay principal balance for the remainder of the loan life, right? Well, I could go out and get a new loan that's interest only for 2 years. And at least now I get a break on not having to pay that principal balance for 2 years. I have time to initiate the business plan, raise rents, increase the NOI. Now I can afford the principal balance later down the road. The difference being with today, if you assume it, you have to pay both. So when you look at that assumable loan that has a principal portion to it also, we need to know how much is that monthly payment in full so that we can figure out the comp of an interest-only payment if I got new lending. Okay. So I did IO. We talked about amortization, the term. So you can actually get 5-year loan, a 3-year loan with two option periods to make it a total of 5-year. You can get a straight 5-year, 7-year, 10-year. And then on your home and such, you'll see 30-year loans, right? When we're doing commercial real estate in general, we're looking 3 to 5 to maybe 10 years for a holding period. So we want to match up our lending to where's our exit as close as we can. The reason that we want to do that is because there's often a prepayment penalty for our lending, right? For our loans. If we were to pay off the loan more than 6 months before the end of the term, the lender, when they started that contract with you, had an idea of how much interest they were going to get over the life of the loan. And so this is coming back to why would there be something available as an assumable loan? When you try to sell your property or refinance the loan 3 years into a 7-year loan, there's still 4 years left of payments to be made and 4 years worth of interest to be made. So depending on the type of prepayment penalty that there is, will depend on how much money you owe the bank, right, to leave that loan. But if you have somebody assume the loan, oftentimes it's very similar to if they were to go get their own lending, there'd be like a 1% or a 0.5% assumption fee. Whereas if you go get a new loan, you're going to have a half to a 1% loan origination fee. Same basic cost to you. So what difference does it make to you, right? Well, it doesn't make a huge difference there. However, it makes a big difference to the seller, because if there's 4 years left on that loan, depending on the type of prepayment penalty that they have to pay, it can make a significant difference. So 3 types of exits, right? 3 types of prepayment penalties. One is defeasance. And defeasance is essentially it's where the lender has an idea of the amount of interest that they were going to make over the lifespan of the loan, right? So 7-year loan, you used it for 3 years, you still have 4 years left of interest to pay. The difference of the difference for this one is where did the interest rates go in comparison to when you took on this loan? If the interest rates went up, then the value of the prepayment penalty changes one direction. If the interest rates go down, the value changes in the opposite direction. If I remember correctly, and this is why I always go to the lender when we're talking new deals and they're talking about defeasance, I'm like, okay, break it down for me again, just so that I hear it from the source. But I always get them a little mixed up here and there is if the interest rates go up, your prepayment penalty goes down because they're getting all their principal back. They can go put it to work for more money. So they're still going to make the same basic on you in the end, right? Because they're putting the money back to work sooner. They're taking into account IRR, which is annual return that includes the time value of money and excuse me, the time and value of related to money. If the interest rates go down and they get their principal back, they can't make as much money. So you owe them more on the accident as a prepayment penalty because they have to make up that difference still on your contract. Now, the second version of an exit or prepayment penalty from the lending is yield maintenance. Yield maintenance basically says, I don't care where we're at in the process. If you want to get rid of this loan, you're going to pay me because I know that I'm going to make X amount of dollars on this entire loan period. You're going to pay me X amount of dollars. No matter when you sell this thing, I'm going to make that money. So if they have, we'll say 8% yield maintenance, then over the life of the loan, they're making their 8% annualized, whatever it might be. All right. So if you leave in year 2, you're going to pay 5 more years. If it's a 7-year loan, keeping things the same, you're going to pay 5 more years worth of interest when you pay off that loan. So that's not ideal, especially if you decide, hey, we're selling now because we're just crushing it. The market's in the right spot. I don't want to hold it till the end. You know, who knows what's going to happen over the next 4 years? Let me sell this thing. Then you have this extra bill that you were like, oh, dang, I didn't realize that was coming. Okay, what do we do? Oh, well, now we barely made anything on the project because we had to pay such high. Well, let's offer an assumption and make that so that we still get to keep all the proceeds. Make that somebody else's problem. Again, yield maintenance, another reason to do an assumption from the seller standpoint. The third version would be what we call a step down. And so on a 7-year loan, I like this example because it makes it it's pretty simple to break down. That makes sense for a lot of folks is on a 7-year loan, they say, okay, you're going to sign this loan. Boom, you're in contract with me. Any prepayment penalty is if you sell in the first 2 years, we're going to charge you 5%. 5% of the loan value to exit the opportunity, to exit this lending. If you sell in years 3 or 4, we're going to charge you 4%. So it's 5% the first 2, 4% the second 2. So at the end of year 4, if you sell and you haven't reached into year 5 yet, you're paying a 4% exit fee to the lender. If you reach into the 5th year, you're now in a 3% exit fee. And so, like I said, 5, 4, 4, and then they go 3, 2, 1, and that takes you to your 7 years. So you would pay a 1%. If you sell in year 6, finishing up into year 7, you would end up paying a 1% exit fee. It's much more palatable than paying an 8%, whatever annualized return like yield maintenance might do. Okay. So those are the 3 versions of a prepayment penalty. Usually somewhere between 3 and 6 months before the end of the term, the prepayment penalty will disappear. If you do bridge lending with like a 3-year note, 3-year term plus 2 option periods, oftentimes your option periods will not have an exit fee, but they may include principal balance. Even though it's a 3-year interest-only loan, the option periods might have principal balance included. Again, all of these pieces are negotiable with the lender before closing. There was one more piece to that I was going to tell you, and the interest only periods. I mentioned the fact that agency does 2 year. Uh, Sometimes you can find some 5 year and 10 year interest only project or lenders. The difference will be because you're not paying principal, there is a little bit more risk to them that they may not get their money back in the future type of thing and all these other things they say, but they also know it's an added value to you. And for them to charge an extra 25 bips or 50 bips, so a 0.5%, it's still worth it to you rather than have to pay a principal balance throughout the life of the loan. So understand that the longer you draw your interest only period, oftentimes you're paying more interest as a whole across the deal because they still want to have a certain return and they want to mitigate their risks a little bit by charging you a little more. They get back a little bit more of the money that they can later say, okay, all right, we can write off a little bit of that capital because we didn't get it back yet. Right. So what else about an assumable loan? Looking at the documents before you do your LOI
There's a question
is,
in the chat, Chris.
oh,
I don't mean
sorry.
to distract you. I think I distracted you pulling the chart. And there was another concept that you explained. If you want to do the question first, and then speaking of the floor, because that depending when you
Mhm.
lock, I think that's a question that came up as well.
Okay. So the question in here is, what's the questions we should ask again, especially related to the yield maintenance? So really it boils down to knowing which version of a prepayment penalty they have. Is it defeasance, yield maintenance, or is it a step down? From our perspective, we really like a step down better because we can budget for that. It falls into the business plan. We know what the numbers are. It doesn't rely on a time frame. It doesn't, other than 3 years in, but it's all defined time frame, right? It doesn't rely on where's the interest rate at compared to when we bought it. How much is the interest rate today? And what I will say is for defeasance and yield maintenance, please verify with your brokers. Hey, can you explain this out to me? How does that get figured out? And what does it look like? Like that's their job as a broker, is to make sure you understand all the pieces of the lending that's coming through to you. And even people who have been doing it for 5, 10, 15 years still clarify and verify certain pieces. So it really just comes down to ask them which version, which type of prepayment penalty is it? What's the time frames? What is their expectation for the yield maintenance? What's their overall expectations? So that you can figure that out. You're not really going to be able to figure out what that prepayment penalty is before you go into the lending because it's a lot of different factors, right? It's when are you thinking you're going to sell? When do you think you're going to refi? What's the interest rate at the time? What else is going on? There's so many different factors that's why there's a specialist, right? That's why there's a mortgage specialist to break it in. I can tell you different questions, but there's just so many. There's got to be a stop point, I guess, for this evening. You asked about the floor. So
Yeah.
let me talk about fixed rate debt versus variable rate debt. Again, it also can be interest only. It can be principal balance included. But fixed rate versus variable rate. Fixed rate, you go into it, you're locked in at one particular rate, and you just pay that throughout the whole thing. Just like we were talking about for like your home mortgage, you have that set bill every month. It hardly changes, and you can just budget very easily to make the payment. Variable rate is based off of a standard. And actually, so is your regular fixed rate. It's based off of a standard, and then they put their spread that becomes their interest rate, right? So variable rate can change every month or every quarter or every 2 years. It all depends on how it's worked out in your step. But what we see in commercial lending on multifamily and others is usually it's about 30 days before your payment is due is the cutoff date for where they pick where the foundation is. The foundation being your market data. 5-year Treasury, SOFR, 10-year Treasury. Used to be one called LIBOR that we used. That just phased out a few years ago. Whatever that standard is, plus whatever the spread is on your loan, which is what the loan broker and the loan lender is going to say, okay, your spread is 400 bips. So whatever, and then your standard is the 5-year Treasury. So if that were the case, I can pull this up real quick. Okay. So I thought, okay,
While you're
share
covering
this.
that, let me see. Hey, Susanna, so good to see you here. I saw your hand raised. I don't know if you have a question you want to be in the panelists. Just let me know.
So the I just mentioned about the 5-year Treasury. Excuse me. And what you'll see here is 5-year Treasury for today. We have so it's got a daily rate. We can break it down and say, hey, over the last 3 months, what did it look like? So you can see where the Treasury went from 4%. It's shot down to 3.6 this month, just on Tuesday. And now it's back up just a hair, right? They just had the Fed said they're going to drop rates 25 bips. Well, did that pop in? No, that was less than 72 hours ago, right? That happened, that meeting happened. So, and the rates pop back up a little bit. Wait a minute. Well, I thought we went down 25. What's going on? So it doesn't necessarily follow exactly what the Fed says for things, but this would be your base, right? So on the 5-year Treasury, if we were to get a loan, this was September 8th. If we got a loan on September 8th and we closed it, the Treasury, the 5-year Treasury was at 3.56. And our spread, we'll just say our spread was 1.44. That would put us at a 6%. 3.56 plus 1.44 is a 6%. I take it back, 5%. I'm sorry, carrying an extra one. That would put us at a 5% interest rate. That's a good interest rate today, right? Well, if this is a variable rate lending, this is what happened in 22 and 23. People were getting into loans like this and they had a nice low rate like this, right? At 3.75, 4.2% interest. When the interest rate shot up, the marker for the next payment was 30 days prior. Where was the interest rate at? Let me see if I can go back. I don't know how far back this can go. Let's do that. So here we are. If you bought in August of 21, you had a nice low rate at 0.74 for your base. By November of 22, you're sitting at 3.75. You just went from 0.75 to 3.8. So it's a 300 bip increase that when they mark it and say that's your base, add on your spread. Even if you had a 2% spread, now you're looking at paying a 5.87 instead of paying 2.75, right? Huge difference in your interest rate for your payments. So variable rate lending has this exactly what it says, variable payments. And every month it gets marked off of whatever the marker is for your lending. Every deal is different. It could be quarterly that it's set. It could be annually. It could be 30 days prior. Okay. Just want to throw it out so that you guys have that idea of how this works.
That's a great segue, Chris. I'm sorry.
Hold on. I just want to cover it. So to hedge your bets, you go get what's called a rate cap, and it's an insurance. So even though you have this variable rate that maybe it carries and it jumps like it did, and all of a sudden you're going from a 2 or 3% interest rate to a 7% interest rate. Well, I have to absorb that. Well, I can go buy insurance as we close on the property and we get the lending. At the same time, we're buying an insurance to protect ourselves from too much of an increase. And so you have different options, of course, with insurance. And in this case, we can buy a different term length of time. So we can buy 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever the length of time is that you decide, I think I should get a rate cap. Sometimes the lender will require it. Other times they don't. There were people that were caught in this last cycle because their lender didn't require it. They didn't think to do it. They didn't think it was a big deal. And then they got caught when the rates went up. And so you're responsible. If you don't have the rate cap, you're responsible for the entire payment. If you have a rate cap, you can buy it. This is the second variable to a rate cap is what's your spread? What's your strike price is what they call it. Is it 1% higher than your initial? Is it 2%, 2.5, 3%, whatever it is? The more distance between that you're willing to pay, the lower your rate is for that insurance. It's like your deductible, right? In your car insurance or your home insurance. So the more deductible you're willing to pay, then you are welcome to you're welcome to pay a little less in the interest, in the cost of that. Well, there were people in 21 that paid $30,000 for a 3-year rate cap. And maybe they paid $30,000 a year. Maybe they just paid 30 grand. Well, over that next couple of years, the rates went up high. And so they were still only responsible for that 1% that they bought at 30,000. They were only responsible to pay that 1%. Everything else the insurance company had to pay. So here we were in 23, 24, and they want that same rate cap that was $30,000, might have been $630,000 to buy one just for 1 year at that point, because the interest rates were so much higher. When you buy this type of insurance, they're hedging, basically giving you a pricing that they say, we expect to pay this much over the amount of time that you're asking for the insurance. And they might give you a little bit of a discount for paying in bulk, basically, but really you're paying up front so that you don't have to pay it on during, and it doesn't take away from your cash flow. So I think that covers each of the areas that you were asking me to cover, Maricela. If there's something else, let me know.
Yes, that's thank you. So I hear a couple comments and questions. So I'm not really familiar with the topics of this presentation, this webinar. Where can I start looking? Well, this is exactly what Grant told his daughter. Now this is a advice from a billionaire. Write down every word that you don't understand. And she said, I felt like I was transcribing the meeting. And that's probably what it's going to feel like. And probably some words you're going to get them wrong. But it's when you start like taking down like word by word the things that you don't understand. Eventually, all of this will make sense for you guys. So and we're going to send a recording of this webinar. So go back and listen to it. All of this information. And the next question is, what about underwriting? When we underwrite, how do we, let's see, what does all this terminology comes into play when you're underwriting? All of this information is given to you when when you request a debt quote from the broker. They're usually going to give you different options, and that's what I was showing you earlier. They're going to give you all the options for this given property. So based on all of this information that we just cover, you're gonna go back and be like, okay, what product, what loan fits best for this deal acquisition? So for example, if you are buying a property that you intend to sell within 5 years, you don't want to you want to get something that is going to allow you to exit at around that time. Maybe it's a step down. Maybe what if you go and let's suppose we're buying a property right now. I'm gonna give you a real scenario. We're buying a 34 units right now in Houston. So, by the way, we're making this a $25,000 minimum investment because we understand that a lot of people want to get started and don't have the 50 or the $100,000 that most opportunities offer. And this we got really good response because we're going to allow more new people to come in and be a part of this acquisition. But anyway, so 34 units we're buying, and the exit strategy is we can cash flow it. The property is cash flowing right now. We can cash flow and just continue to hold it. Or we can sell to a developer because around the property, every single angle has new construction. And this is sitting on a 3 acre site. So what if we sell earlier? So based on those potential scenarios, we are choosing, the different the type of lending that we are being presented with. Now, if we buy it with something that is locking us for 10 years, and if we want to get out, we have to pay high penalties for stepping down or our yield maintenance, then we don't want that product, right? Because there's an opportunity that we might have to refinance and return capital, or that we could sell early at a really good price. So because of that, we are keeping our options pretty open. There's the product that we have, that uh, you can buy out 3 years with a little higher percentage, and then after that, the percentage to buy out to step down, it's gonna decrease. So what if we go and get on the contract and it takes like 6 months to get closed? That takes us to nearly like the next year. So again, that's how you take all this information and plug it into your analyzer, and it gives you pretty much how is that going to affect your returns to your investors. Okay, so let me see that. I think that cover this question here.
I'm going to say along the lines of the terminology was a little over my head. I will say you're right. There's things that come up that we don't know, and like Maricela said, write it down, look it up later. Try not to get caught up on it. This particular section talking about financing, there are some terms that if you've never gotten a loan, if you've never walked through those different pieces, it is very confusing and very daunting. And that's also where if you're getting to the point of some of those terms, either you should have some people in your network that you can talk about it with, or as you're looking for lending, you make sure that they explain what that means, right? We are giving you some advanced terms because it will help you in your conversations to sound a little bit more professional, sound like you have a little more background. That helps to elevate your conversations with the brokers, whether it's a listing broker or the lending brokers. But that's kind of there's terms in there that I defined some of them as we went, told you what they were, and so because we knew that they were more advanced terms, right? And or we gave examples of it. So we don't ever mean to purposefully speak over anybody in this group. We're trying to help you elevate and educate, and we're happy to slow it down a little. Feel free if you had a specific term that you don't know, or you had a specific thing that we discussed that hey, can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, I didn't quite get it. Worst case scenario, we say, hey, we're going to get on a call afterwards, or we'll send an extra video afterwards. But we are kind of limited on time, and we want to make sure we're hitting as many points as we can. But we also want to make sure we're answering your questions, because if you have that question, somebody else has that question. And I totally could have worked this in a little bit with when I talk variable versus fixed rate. Is somebody asked, hey, which one does better, fixed rates or the variable rate loans? The research from one of the companies that does variable rate lending or does the insurance for variable rate lending, they say that the variable rate lending is actually the better one in the business cycle as a long-term option. So if you hold a property for 10 years with 10-year variable rate debt, they say that you will, in the end, pay less debt, less interest than if you were to do a fixed rate debt at the wrong time in the market. So the nice part to fixed rate mortgages is that you can budget everything and it just stays consistent, right, throughout the whole entire holding period. The downside to a fixed rate is if you buy fixed rate when the interest rates are high, you're stuck paying a higher interest rate for the life of the loan. If you can find one when you're under 5 or under 4, then that's a great time to go into fixed rate. And if you're in variable rate lending, that's a great time to switch out if your floor doesn't bring you down far enough. I talked about that a minute ago. then switch out and get new lending. There needs to be a purpose to why you would refinance. It needs to benefit the property just as much, or the performance of the property, and or give back capital to investors, a significant amount of capital to investors, not like 5 or 10%. You want to give 25 to 40% minimum. Really like to give more than that if we can, but that's going down another track. Performance wise, it just depends on when you get that fixed rate debt. And if you're in variable, swap it out when it does make better sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let me see what other questions they have. So overall, just to recap, in case, because I saw some people coming in a little late, and just to recap, we are started talking about lending options, and then we gear the conversation towards your exit strategy and how your expense that is associated with the type of loan that you use. So the three options that we have, obviously paying off the loan will be one, but yield maintenance, and that's how you get charged, and the lump sum, and the banks expect to make a certain amount of interest on the loan, and that's how they charge you the yield maintenance. So also when you're buying, you need to make sure that this, you're making the choice. You get the choice at the beginning, but once that you're locked. Okay. The defeasance is the other one, and then a step down. So again, just to recap quickly on the topic, and I started showing the chart. I didn't want it to confuse you, Chris, but I started sharing the chart. If you want to, I can show it, and I think I
Sure.
see some questions there as well, and something about
Yeah, you
depreciation.
want perfect. So I can tell the quick answer on depreciation is so you could depreciate over 27 and a half years. That is called straight line depreciation. And you basically take the value of the property, remove the land value from that, and divide it by 27 and a half. And now every year you take the same amount of depreciation. Or you could do what's called a cost segregation, which is a study done by an engineer to evaluate the value of the improvements on the property. By improvements, basically the building and all the fixtures and everything that's inside the building and part of the building. These have a depreciation schedule related to their life expectancy. So like a hot water heater might last 12 years, an air conditioning unit might last 15, your light fixtures might last 5, right? All these things have a life expectancy before you would generally have to change them out. The cost segregation identifies all of these things that are part of the building, and they say it's not the 27 years that you move into year one, it's only the first 15 years. The items that depreciate in the first 15 years get to move into year one, and you can depreciate all of that. Now, this year, they signed the documents that say, hey, we're going back to 100% depreciation for now. So you can depreciate all of that that depreciates in the first 15 years. You can move it into year one and take that as a paper loss, is what we call it, of depreciation, bonus depreciation, all in year one. Over the holding period, you still have a small amount of depreciation that continues, because there's things that depreciate greater than 15 years. Those don't get to move forward, but they do get divided by that 27 and a half. So each year you take another small chunk of depreciation throughout the holding period. Let me see here. What does that look like on a $30 million property? I can't tell you, because if it's a Class A $30 million property, it would have more depreciation available to it than if it was a Class C property that had 500 doors and it's 60 years old, with lower end fixtures. So it boils down to what is the value of the stuff that's in the building. And this is also where we differ a little bit in multifamily gives you a higher depreciation than mobile home parks and storage. Why? Because there's more fixtures, there's more piping, there's more lights, there's heaters, there's all these other aspects that you may not see in these other asset classes. So again, you can still find a $30 million mobile home park. So again, the difference in value is The difference of the value of the improvements on the property is what dictates what can be marked for depreciation, bonus depreciation. It is different on every deal. Appreciate you.
What I can share is that the deal that we're buying is a 1970s property. Um, so initially you get when you get under contract, that's one of the things that most investors want to know. How much depreciation am I going to get for an investment of, given amount? So you get a quote from the provider that we hire a um, accelerated depreciation expert, and he can give you pretty much an estimate, a soft estimate. And then once that you go in and take over, do the implementation of the plan, the business plan, then that's when you narrow down how much. But in the property that we're buying, we're often offering about 28%, and he is very conservative. So maybe about 30%. So for every dollar that an investor invests, they will get about 28 or 30,000, 30 cents depreciate of the depreciation. Let's see. Let me see other questions. The Grant said, "Be the dumbest person in the room." Yeah, he often said, "I don't care to be wrong. I don't have to be wrong. We just have to figure out a way." So yes, there's going to be a recording of this, especially with all this terminology that we are talking about. And did you say you wanted to go to the chart, or you want me to go through the chart, Chris?
Um, I can run through this quickly if you want to. So
Mhm.
we talked about Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are the agency debts that we talked about at the beginning of this. The non-recourse bridge, I mentioned about those, and the bank loans are one version, and there's also some private equity that's out there. And so this chart basically breaks down what version of loan would happen for multifamily. Oftentimes they are not recourse. They're non-recourse. Sometimes the banks will still leave the guarantors as responsible for the principal balance. But these other ones, they generally on multifamily, they don't make you. Now they will have a personal guarantor that goes on there, signing off as the experience, net worth, things like this. But it's not like the responsibility is to the LLC, the borrowing entity with the property they own to make the payments. If anything goes wrong and they have to foreclose, the legal liabilities, provided you didn't do things intentionally wrong, you didn't lie to them when you filled out your application, all of those types of things, the liability stops at the property. So they'll just take the property and move on. If you were to break the rules, they could come through and get compensated from the general partnership as long as you're set up with appropriate syndication documents. The LPs, the limited partners, the people who brought capital to the deal only, and they don't perform a task, they are generally clear of any liabilities and any issues. It's very rare to break that split. Let me see, minimum loan amounts. She broke those out. Typical loan terms, we talked about the loan terms, which is the length of time for the actual loan. It can be separate from what the amortization period is, which you see 2 sections further down. You have interest-only periods. Every lender is a little different. And even in this last one where she wrote 3 years, we have seen agency debt at 10 years. Actually, we've seen some agency debt with 10-year interest-only periods. So it's very interesting. Excuse me, max lending. Max loan to value. This 80%, they're getting a little more strict. They're coming back down towards 70. Yeah, coming back down to 70% for the most part, but they still have the agency debt. For occupancy, agency debt usually does require at least a 90% occupancy. If you have less than 90% occupancy on your property, you have different lenders that would be interested. If you have 80% occupancy, different lenders that would be interested, 70%. Like you run into less and less lenders that are available to you because it's too risky at 70% occupancy. It just doesn't make sense for many lenders, and it doesn't fit into their business plan. So you have to be aware when you're looking at deals, even a new property that is in lease up. When you hit 70%, you may want to start talking to lenders that'll do 90 and in your contract, if you get under contract, you put it in there that the property will be at 90% occupancy before closing. Otherwise, the sellers would like automatic extensions or whatever. So just be aware because you want to make sure that you're qualifying for stuff. Let me see, rehab budget in the loan. Actually, there was a phase where the agency was including, but I don't believe they're doing that anymore. Again, this is a picture at a moment in time, right? But it gives you the basics about the different conversations, the different terminology so that you can see it and kind of see it implemented a little bit. Let's see, supplemental loans. This is where if you did an assumable, I love this actually that it's here because I didn't talk about it. You do an assumable loan or a supplemental loan, excuse me. When you do an assumable loan, I at the same time am assuming that that does not cover the full amount that I could get a loan for to buy this property. So if the loan is for $3.5 million, I'm buying for 10. I still have another $3.5 million available to me to reach that 75% or better loan to value. I can go get a second loan as a new loan with a new interest rate, new interest only period potentially, and put it on top of the original that we're assuming. And that's a supplemental loan. It supplements without having to get rid of that low interest rate loan that we have. Borrower's experience. Yep, this is it. You're going to hold with multifamily and other asset classes, you're going to have somebody with experience who goes on the loan and signs because they want to know that their asset is protected. And I say their asset because the lender is your biggest partner with the most amount of money involved in the deal. It's their asset. They're just letting you run it with your business plan. Let me see. And then the current range of interest rates.
That
Again,
was
this
in
was
second quarter, I think.
yep,
24.
Q1 24. Yep.
Yeah.
So again, a picture and time. So if there's any questions about this, we can dig deeper, but I think that gives you the basics of understanding for it. And she did that second line was minimum loan amounts. You can get 90, 190, Grant gets $175 million loans. So it's just about finding the right lender for the product that you have or the asset that you're looking at. I think it's Freddie Mac does $1 million loans. Fannie Mae doesn't come under 5 or under 3 or something like that. There's different minimums. And the interest rate changes depending on what that dollar amount is as well. So, all right, we can
we have
turn that off if you
questions.
want.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's get to questions. And yeah, again, I saw a couple hands up. If you want to come to the panelist room, just raise your hand and keep it up so I can find you. And
The step down prepayment penalty can be on either type of loan. It doesn't matter if it's fixed rate or variable. You can get a step down on either. Let's see. And feel free if you bring somebody, bring them in the room. I'll stop answering questions here, but otherwise I'll just roll through what we have. Let me see. In loans that are assumable, do you have to take that loan, or can you move past that and start your loan? What do you think is the best way to go? So I mentioned the fact that with an assumable loan, the seller is avoiding the prepayment penalty. You're taking on the burden as the buyer of that prepayment penalty. So if you don't know if you're going to keep the property long enough to make it to the end of the loan, it may not be something you want to do. The other side of it is if you feel like your underwriting shows that you get better debt service with a new loan, The seller still wants to get paid enough to give out the returns to their investors or make the money they want to make. If they have to pay off their assumable loan and pay that defeasance or yield maintenance, it's a high value price tag that they weren't necessarily counting for. That's why they offer the assumption, is so that they don't have to worry about that payment. Well, with your new lending, you get a great deal, but they get screwed, and they're not looking to get screwed. So they may say, that's great. You want to do that? Don't assume the loan, but the price just went up $1 million too, because I have to pay $1 million too in lender fees. So is that your problem or is that their problem? Well, it's their problem, because until you buy the property, it's not your problem. Right. So what's going on, Mr. James?
Hey, James, you're muted. So good to see you here.
Hello, guys. Yes, it's great to see you guys. I have a question about the step down loan. When would that come into like when would that be a useful tool in getting that?
So it's part of the conversation when they offer the debt, right? When they're going to lay out a soft quote that tells you how much lending, how much they're willing to give in proceeds, what the interest rate is, what the basis is, that 5 year SOFR or 10 year or whatever. And then as you work your way down the line, they'll have it listed: yield, defeasance, or they'll have the numbers laid out for your step down. And we've seen where it looked like the best lending was, it had the best interest rate, it had the best proceeds, and then they had yield maintenance. And we're like, can you go back to them and ask what it looks like as step down? Again, it elevates your conversation a little bit, because I just want to know what my exit is. I don't want to have to like figure it out on the fly and go, okay, we're going to sell at this price. Let's get it listed because we're a great market. It's a great time to sell. And then you find out, bam, you're going to get hit with another $1.5 million of
Penalties.
prepayment penalties because your debt service is $1 million something and you're selling it early. Right.
And can you explain the difference between the yield maintenance and the step down again?
Yield maintenance covers basically the quick version is yield maintenance is all of the interest that would have been paid for the life of the loan.
Okay.
Right. So wherever you sell, it doesn't matter. You're still paying the same amount of interest to the bank. It's just considered a prepayment penalty instead of interest at that point. Okay.
And that's because if you think about it, the lenders, well, speaking of the lenders, I've been rereading this book, what's it called? The monster? No, hold on. I have to look it up. But
Oh,
it's about
Jekyll Island.
the Jekyll Island. Yes. It's very, very interesting, guys. If you're l- processing loans, or if you're saving your money on the bank in the bank, like, it's a must read. Anyway, so think about it. The loans, the lender has investors. Maybe you guys have money in the bank and you are the investors. Okay, so they're expected to make certain amount of interest on the given borrow amount of money. So you either do it by holding the loan that long, or by, if you have to exit that loan, then they're expected to make this much money when they lend you the money. So that's what they're charging you, because they have to pay them, they have to make profits and pay the investors pretty much. So that's the way I see it. Oh, you said you want to borrow it for 10 years and now you only need it for 5 years, or we were going to charge you this penalty to exit because we're expected to now turn around and lend that money somewhere else. We became more aware of this terminology and this, like, all of the bank related negotiations, because we buy notes. So we pretty much are the lenders in many of the many of our properties. And so we just sold a property where we were the lender. And so for 4.5 years, I think 4.5 years, we were getting paid by our property. And then at one point the loan expired and we didn't know wanted to renew it. That was the term of the loan. And so we had a clause that if we didn't receive payment in full, there was no extension anymore, and the interest rate just double. And for the past, what, 8 months, we were getting double the interest rate. Again, you are the loan I mean, you're the lender, you make the rules. Same thing for them. Or money was there longer than what we wanted it to be. Because of that, we're gonna charge you more. And so we just happen to also be the owners of the property. So it's really
Uh,
interesting when you are when you're positioning yourself as a loan, as a lender, and that's what we're doing with our fund. But part of our fund lends to other projects, and that's how we are able to charge more, and we pay our investors immediately, whether we are like some of the projects might be delayed because we have to do the implementation of the upgrade so that we can charge more. Most of the apartments are not paying, like, just because that's the nature of it. If any of you are invested in apartments, that might be a year and a half, and you're not getting paid. Well, more investors don't like that. So to fix that problem, we became the bank, in which we're in a position where every month we get paid and our investors get paid.
And
Um,
to go along the lines of the conversation that you were asking about, James, where with defeasance, maintenance step down, and all of that is negotiated before the lending actually happens. And that's why we were able to increase, like, all of that was pre-arranged and pre-agreed when we loaned the money out. It was all documented as to what the terms were. If anything were late, if we went over on maturity. The nice part was we had the option. We could have refinanced. Rates were coming down. It's looking halfway decent, but we were also in the process of selling. And so it was really helpful for us. And it could be the same with any lender. If you reach out in advance and tell them, hey, this is what's going on. Just because your loan comes due does not mean you have to pay it off right then and there. If you talk to them in advance and have the conversation, listen, guys, we're going under contract. We're about to sell the property. It could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. Can we just keep making payments and work something out that we just keep making payments and you don't foreclose on us just because we reach the maturity date? They understand the business plan. They understand the market, and their goal is not to take your property. Their goal is to lend the money, make money, get the money back, and go put it back to work again. So they're like, yeah, but here, you're going to have to pay this fee. Here's an extension fee, and we'll just do an
Loan
extension for 6
modifications.
months, right? And we'll do what's called a loan modification. We'll change the terms of the loan so that you're no longer in default by being late with the payment. You didn't meet the maturity. And, there's still different things that the lender has to do. They're obligated to send out a message. Hey, you're past your maturity date, blah, blah, blah. We could foreclose on you. But if you already had the conversation, all they're doing is covering themselves legally, and anything going on should be things that you already agreed to in advance.
I think this month
Cool.
I published, thank you, Chris. I think this month I published a blog in our website. If you go to our website, I talked about, because 2 years ago, and even I still hear people be like, "Oh, I'm looking for properties that the loan is going to expire, or that they're in a bad position." If you look at, we are in contact with a lot of operators, but we look at, there's a lot of modifications of loans, and the lenders just like they couldn't be floated back with properties that they were either not performing or not have enough, like just not be able to survive. So they've done loan modifications for, you know it's always going to go back to they have to make money. So, but there's, I think, like 48% of the properties that were and variable rates are now on some kind of modification of the loan. So I found that, I think I put the study where I found that information, but it's really interesting because what we thought, well, like when in 2023, 2024, there's going to be a lot of properties that are in distress, and we are going to go after those, and we need to be prepared. A lot of those properties are being, they're working out things with the lender, and they're just doing modification of loans. So it's really interesting, very, very interesting. So, no, that was a great question. Did we get your question answered?
Yeah, this has been great. Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. Do you want to stay
I
here?
think
Or
so.
you?
Just to clarify, these are terms. A lot of these are terms that they'll throw in the loan. So when you're signing off on a loan, you want to watch for these terms. Is basically.
Yeah, for
Literally,
sure.
think about your exit at the same time as you're thinking about your entry into the property, because everybody gets focused on the interest rate and the loan term and the length of time and the interest only period, but you have to look at your exit also in advance so that you know that you're set up for success on the other end.
Great stuff. Thank
Absolutely.
you, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
James.
The
We'll see
other
you soon.
thing that we spent quite a bit of time actually, Chris, I think you did a recording and I have it in YouTube, so I'll send it to you guys with this recording. But it's loan assumptions. There's a lot of properties that were underwritten with a loan assumption, and the person failed to calculate what the new rate is going to be and the blended rate and all that stuff. I think that's another topic that got it's just if you're not seeing it or if you're not going through this or underwriting with it's really easy to assume that, oh, I'm going to go for an assumable loan that ends up being like it is going to expire in 8 months or 10 months, and you're like all of a sudden have to be the one refinancing. So just being careful with those aspects of a loan assumption. That was another topic that came up. Let's see. All right, what other
I'm,
questions do you have?
I'm hitting that other one. I'm
All
sending a
right.
private message back to.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you're good.
um
And
okay.
really, I guess I can hit a portion of it. So talking about trying to manage your own properties, you know, trying to be on the GP team and, hey, I'm willing to be the boots on the ground. I'll manage the property. I'll be there every day. Um, it's okay. It's a supporting role to the ownership. But if you don't have history managing properties previously, the lender's not going to buy off on you being the property manager. They're not going to buy off on you being the sole person doing the asset managing. You It doesn't mean that you can't be included on the asset management team, that you can't be involved in the phone calls, but the lender themselves, they have different criteria, just like the well, the lender's asking for experienced people to be on the loan, right? It's because they have experience going through the business plan, doing what they're saying they're going to do. And so they feel more comfortable with that. If they didn't have somebody there that has experience, you can bet that they would charge a higher interest rate because there's less comfort, there's less security, there's much more risk because you've never done it before. There's much more risk to the lender of their asset going bad or that the business plan could not work. And so how do they deal with risk? They charge a higher interest rate. Okay.
I think that answers the question. Well, partially answers the question here. What are the lenders typically looking for when deciding whether to lend to a buyer? That's a really, really good question. And that's a question that comes up very often when you go, you're new and you don't have the experience. First of all, if you don't have the experience, like and if you haven't had any multifamily that you hold for at least 5 years, you're considered a new borrower, and therefore they want you to have a senior borrower and the team. So that's number one. And yeah. So depending on the type of asset as well. So for example, if you've been only buying apartments and all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna go buy a self-storage facility, that's gonna be the same. Like if you don't have that type of asset for at least 3 to 5 years, and different lenders are they have different requirements, but they're mainly they're protecting their investment. So they're looking for experience. They're looking that you're gonna be involved. They're looking that you have the liquidity in case something happens, that you can actually you know bail the property pretty much. You might bail it out. That the partnership has the liquidity, and they're involved pretty much. So those are the things that they're looking for. They will ask you for your SREO, your schedule of real estate owned, and your PFS to see your liquidity and your cash position, and then a bio, showing them the type of properties. How are you, how do you buy them? They also run, if you're going to be on the loan, they're going to be running your background check and your credit report. So I think that answers the last question here. Yeah, we kind of spend the whole day or the whole hour talking about lending. So yes, a question came up again. This recording is going to be available probably by tomorrow. We'll send it out to those who register. And if you know anyone that would like to hear it, then just let me know. Or send me the information that I can add them to the list and send it out. And just when you go back and listen to it, like really try to understand the concept, and we try to give real case studies so that this you kind of stick. So hopefully that helps you guys. And yeah, we closed on the self storage. That's our big win. We closed was it yesterday or 2 days ago, and we're excited, that we're moving on to the different just going full cycle. It always show it, and we haven't calculated yet the return. So we're going to be presenting that this. Usually we have an investor update the first Saturday of the month. So we're going to be dissecting that case study and just showing you how we did it. How we did it, what were the results, what were the returns to investors. But that property was averaging about 15% cash on cash, as a what was given to monthly, it was quarterly actually, to the investors. So but we like to put it all together, like the whole case study, how we found the property, when do we acquire it, how do we acquire it. So if you're up for that, that's going to be a case study on the first Saturday of the month. And then the second Saturday of the month we do Q&A similar to this. So just bring your questions, and we entertain even underwriting deals. Somebody asked about underwriting. Just we do a quick underwriting. We don't do deep underwriting on that call because it's just too involved. But if you have a deal and you're looking at and just analyzing a deal and you want to break down the numbers, we can do that on the second week of the Saturday. I put the link in the chat where we publish all of our events. I think last 2 weeks ago, I did a business webinar, and then the week before, I did a business real estate summit. That's usually a little longer than an hour. And again, it's just to be, give back and stay connected with all of you. And it helps when you send us your questions. So just and you know what? I told you I was gonna give you the chat to our WhatsApp chat. So let me, Chris, if you're gonna cover. I think there's a question there. That way I can send you guys this link.
Absolutely. Let's see. Thanks for so much. We appreciate you guys. Just a comment saying thank you, appreciate it, helpful information. We look forward to doing these with you guys, right? I think this is year 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is year 3 of us doing this. So on a monthly, every third Thursday of the month, we're out here. We try to manipulate our schedule to make sure that we are available for this. And I was literally on a coaching call right before this, till 2 minutes before the call. So we appreciate you guys coming out. We like to do it. We want to make sure that we're getting your questions answered, as well as, I guess I'll say, throwing out some things that maybe you didn't think about. James has been involved with the community, I think, for 3 years now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
It might even be 4. I can't remember when you came to the club. And here he is asking about the step down and what's the difference between certain things, right? I appreciate that, because this means that we are adding value at all different levels, right? We've got some people saying, "Hey, I don't even know what this term means." We've got others saying, "Hey, I'm not exactly sure how that works. When do I do that? When do I check on that?" So I love the fact that we're bringing things that are helpful to pretty much everybody in the room. And if you have any specific questions that you want or need answered in the future, please feel free to send us a text, an email. Shoot, she just gave you the WhatsApp chat, so you'll be able to ask them on a daily basis. You don't have to wait for the third Thursday each month, right? So, but thank you.
Yeah, I put in the chat the link to our WhatsApp chat. That's another place where we answer questions as they come. Anytime that we answer a question offline or in person, we try to bring it there just to kind of, again, if somebody has the question, probably many of you can, benefit from that. And it's just a place where you can go and conversation. If you're interested in growing your social media presence, let us know. We have another chat where all that we do in that chat is like and comment on your social media posts. So let me know if you like to be a part of that. Um, Again, everything is for free. It just needs your engagement. And one thing that was recently shared, actually, we were at headquarters with Grant Cardone last 2 days. Well, he wasn't there the 2 days, but he was there for a little bit. And one of the things that he shares, like the lack of information is no longer an excuse for not do or achieve the things that you can achieve. Everything that we just told you, you can easily find it somewhere online, ChatGPT. Like you can, there's no excuse for like, oh, I don't understand that, or I didn't know that. Like there's no excuse for it. What's gonna get us to reach our goals is the implementation, and that's where most people just gets frozen, and then they start consuming so much information, and they just fail to pull the trigger. So whether it's getting started investing, whether it's looking for a partner so that you can grow, make sure that you are doing the things that you need to do. We are super excited. We have Lee is here. She's one of our new partners. First deal. Lee, if you want to raise your hand if you're in a position to be here, like we just love sharing that. She's been following us for a long time, and she's like always showing, always being in the room. I'm working on getting you in the room, okay? The same thing, or other partner. She's not in the 10X community. She Benicia, and then also Mildred, Millie. We met in these communities, and our intention is to like build you up with the knowledge so that when you're ready to pull the trigger and do your first deal, like Lee is doing, you can then just come and play the game, right? That's the best, the only way really to learn by doing it, by being in the driver's seat. Hi, Lee, how are
Hey,
you?
hey, Maricela, I just want to tell you, I took a lot of my notes from last night, but I just want to tell you guys, if you're newer than me, sometimes you're supposed to feel like you're going to throw up. And that's how you know you're doing it right. You're not supposed to be comfortable. And Maricela and Chris, they've gotten me out of my comfort zone, and they've pushed me in a gentle and firm way, and I love it, and I've been inspired, and I am doing a deal with them, and I can't believe that happened. So, but you guys get in on the action. I really appreciate you guys so
Oh,
much.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank
well,
you.
Thank you. We
same
appreciate you
here.
being part of it. Yep.
Yeah, we're excited. This is only the first one of many. Yeah, we already know. That's right.
Mila, come
Uh,
say hi.
oh, Mila's there. Oh my God, she's like the best marketer. What did she say?
Mila, no. Maricela wants to say hi and everybody.
Hi, Mila.
Saw that video we made, and they love the video. Come and say hi real quick. She's so excited.
Oh, she said the money will come. What is that you
Yeah.
said? The
What
money
did you
will
say? The
come.
money will come if the deal is just right? You say
Yeah,
it. The money will come if the deal is just
that's right. When the deal
right.
is just right, the money will come. Listen to her. What is she? Six,
Awesome.
7 years old?
She's 7, and I'm just gonna keep her in school for another year. She's already reading, and she's already writing sentences. But I have her
Wow.
listen in on these calls. So
I
when
love
Chris
it.
was speaking, she was like, "What's he talking about?" I said, "He's talking about something called lending, and that has to do with money, and you're
I
gonna learn
love it.
about it." So it's
I love it.
something.
Nice. Well, I hope you took some really good notes, Mila. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so
I'll have
much
to,
again.
I'll
Go
have to
ahead.
put on my grandpa voice when I'm doing stuff now, right?
There
Start
you
making little
go. There
extra
you go. Bedtime
says.
stories. Bedtime stories.
She'll start to remember them then.
That's right. Well, I can't wait for you to meet our granddaughter. Her name is Skylar.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
she's gonna be yeah, she's you guys are gonna be working together closing on deals, okay? We're gonna teach you everything we know.
That's right. They'll be millionaires before they're 18 for sure.
Absolutely.
The
That's the
right
plan.
way.
The right
That
way.
should be good.
All right,
All right,
guys. Well,
guys.
thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
guys.
hanging and for the
We'll see
questions,
ya.
and I'll talk to you soon.
See
Bye-bye.
you.